Blacks, Jews, the religious challenge, or politics versus religion. Everyone familiar with Dante's channel is probably familiar with this source. It's an amazing source. And I'm about to show you why in this context and how it's relevant to what we're reading. We're on page 235, and this is from Cambridge University. I don't know if I said that already. Where does it say? Cambridge University Press, right here. So we're on page 235. Right here it says at the bottom. I'm going to zoom in. 235. We're going to be at the last paragraph. Okay, so we've read that the blacks in the slave coast in Judah were Jews. We know it's undeniable at this point that they were Jews. And we just read in the previous source how they were the best and most expensive of all the Negroes in Africa. The blacks in the kingdom of Judah, West Africa, they were black, they were Jews, and they were the best and most expensive Negroes out of all the Negroes in Africa. So let's read this now with that in mind. The study of customs and rites and the analysis of the semantics of these African tribes have led many of their observers to propose some hypotheses and even to draw some conclusions. Dr. Alan H. Godby reached the following conclusion. And these factors have a very specific significance if we consider the presence of Judaism among the American Negroes. Hundreds of thousands of slaves were transported to America from West Africa during the trade, which started some 400 years ago. What traces of Judaism still remained among the Negroes of West Africa at that period? To the extent that they were persecuted, they were more likely than other Negroes to be seized during wars and sold as slaves. I'm going to read that last part again. What traces of Judaism still remained among the Negroes of West Africa at that period, the period of the transatlantic slave trade? To the extent that they were persecuted, they were more likely than other Negroes to be seized during wars and sold as slaves. So that's the curses of Deuteronomy 28 in full effect. Black Jews were more likely than other Negroes to be seized during wars and sold as slaves. And we read in the previous source it said that the black Jews of the kingdom of Judah on the slave coast, West Africa, were the best and most expensive. It's all curses of Deuteronomy 28 in full effect. All the information meshes together. It's not a big coincidence. It's historical fact that the Jews were black people who migrated from the Middle East, so-called Middle East, through Africa into West Africa. They set up shop there. They settled there. They got involved in the customs and practices of other nations that surrounded them, but they also were still Jews. A lot of them, they kept their customs. Some of them, and a lot of them didn't keep the customs. Well, we read and we dealt with all of those topics. And we can see that during the slave trade, there was a kingdom of Judah on the west coast of Africa, inhabited by black Jews, who eventually ended up getting captured and sold as slaves and put on slave ships to America and other locations. And this is the book of Deuteronomy, chapter 28, verse 64. And the Lord shall scatter thee among all people from the one end of the earth, even unto the other, and there thou shalt serve other gods, which neither thou nor thy fathers have known, even wood and stone. So like I said, the Israelites losing their customs, their identity, is prophesied in the Bible. We read sources explaining how and why the Israelites that lost their customs did lose their customs. We read how and why that did happen to them. And we also read about Jews and Israelites who did not lose their customs and were still practicing them. All right. But it's prophesied in the Bible that if they did lose their customs and worship other gods and deities and idols like snakes, for example, that's prophesied in the Bible. This is the book of Deuteronomy, chapter 28, verse 68. And the Lord shall bring thee into Egypt again with ships, by the way whereof I spake unto thee. Thou shalt see it no more again. And there ye shall be sold unto your enemies for bondmen and bondwomen, and no man shall buy you or redeem you. The Israelites had a custom of buying and redeeming each other out of servitude or slavery, if they were able to afford it. That's in the law. But in this case, God said nobody would buy or redeem us. And we know this isn't talking about literal Egypt, because the Israelites, the 12 tribes, never went back to literal Egypt. In Deuteronomy chapter 1, verse 1, it says that Moses was speaking to all of Israel. That means he was speaking to Israel as a nation. There's no history inside the Bible or outside of the Bible that shows all 12 tribes of Israel as a nation returning to Egypt, literal Egypt, on ships. This is the commentary or a commentary on Ezekiel chapter 4, verse 5 on the Biblehub website. We're looking at the Jamieson-Fausset-Brown Bible commentary. We're just going to jump down straight to the point. Elsewhere, or right here, elsewhere, Deuteronomy 28:68 or Hosea 9:3, God threatened to bring them back to Egypt, which must mean not Egypt literally, but a bondage as bad as that one in Egypt. So now God will reduce them to a kind of new Egyptian bondage to the world. I'll read that one more time. Elsewhere, in Deuteronomy 28, verse 68, and Hosea 9, verse 3, God threatened to bring them, the Israelites, back to Egypt, which must mean not Egypt literally, but a bondage as bad as that one in Egypt. So now God will reduce them to a kind of new Egyptian bondage to the world. This is not a BHI, Black Hebrew Israelite, Black supremacist, Afrocentric website. This is your friendly neighborhood Bible Hub. And we are once again on Biblehub. This is the commentary for Hosea 8:13. They sacrifice flesh for the sacrifices of mine offerings and eat it, but the Lord accepteth them not. Now will he remember their iniquity and visit their sins. They shall return to Egypt. Let's go down to the Benson commentary. Right here, where it gives commentary on the part that says they shall return to Egypt. It says, going into Egypt seems to have been a proverbial expression for extreme misery, and may here denote that they should go into a state of captivity and bondage as bad as that which their forefathers had suffered in Egypt. All right. So in conclusion, Egypt, meaning captivity or bondage or slavery, is not a BHI doctrine. With that being said, shalom.